Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Millennium TV News. This is Fahmida Islam with you. Before moving on, let's look at today's top stories. Pope Francis holds large mass in Philadelphia to end US visit. Prince Harry surprises Duke of York's military school students. David Cameron meets Iranian president over Syria conflict. 4 British jihadists face UN sanctions. Calais migrant crisis, man crushed in lorry. Well, those were the headlines, now the details. Pope Francis appealed for unity and family love as thousands of people gathered at the city's Benjamin Franklin Parkway. Earlier, the pontiff prayed with a group of victims of child sexual abuse, saying God weeps for their suffering. Clergy and bishops abusing children would be held accountable, he said. The Roman Catholic Church in the U.S. has been embroiled in child sex scandals. U.S. dioceses have made huge compensation payouts to victims. However, many abuse survivors are angry at how the Vatican has dealt with allegations. The prince also presented medals to outstanding pupils at Duke of York's Royal Military School near Dover. The first clue students had as to the identity of the guest was then the band when started playing the national anthem. I didn't believe it. I was so shocked, said 14-year-old Megan Davidson, a drummer with the school's military band. Saint Duno, 11, who was on parade when the prince walked past, said, I thought, is that Prince Harry? Then I asked my friend next to me and he said, probably not. But I said, yes, it's him. Prince Harry, dressed in his Blues and Royals uniform and peaked cap, was also given a private tour of the school's chapel and met with staff and sixth formers. The military school was established in 1803 in Chelsea by Frederick, Duke of York, to care for the orphans of soldiers. The prince met Simone Daglish, an ex-pupil and current governor of the school, when he took part in the first stage of a polar expedition to raise funds for charity Walking with the Wounded, which supports injured ex-servicemen and women. The pair's meeting, which was brought forward from Tuesday, was at the United Nations Summit in New York. Downing Street said it was a good, considered, thoughtful discussion between the two leaders. Efforts to engage Tehran in a push to end Syria's civil war have been spurred by a thaw in relations with the West. The meeting was rescheduled after Mr. Rouhani decided to cut short his attendance at the UN General Assembly to fly home for funerals of victims of the Hajj stampede, which killed at least 700 people. They talked for 45 minutes, a Downing Street spokeswoman said. The UN's updated sanctions list named the 4 as Omar Hussein from High Wycombe, Nasser Muthana from Cardiff, Aqsa Mahmoud from Glasgow, and Sally Annie Jones from Chatham in Kent. They will face a travel ban and a freeze of their assets. The move is a new tactic to stem the flow of recruits to the IS group. At least 700 Britons have traveled to support our fight for jihadist groups in Syria and Iraq, according to British police. About half have since returned to the UK. It is the first time since 2006 that Britain has submitted names to the UN sanctions regime, which was set up to tackle suspected al-Qaeda terrorism and extended to IS. Calais officials said the man was crushed by pellets and was found by a Hungarian driver at about 7 BST. The Iraqi man was traveling with 2 other family members who were unhurt, a spokesman for the prefecture du Pas-de Calais said. He is the 12th person to have died trying to cross the English Channel to reach Britain since late June. Last week, a teenager thought to be from East Africa was killed by a freight train near the Channel Tunnel entrance in Calais. Days earlier, a man died when he was electrocuted at the tunnel entrance. We'll take a short break here. Do stay with us. We're back in a moment with the headlines here. Syria conflict, Russia considers joining anti-IS airstrikes. Yemen conflict, wedding attack, death toll rises to 130. Afghan forces fight to retake Kunduz from Taliban. Nations pledge new 40,000 UN peacekeepers, and Italian aid worker killed in Bangladesh by IS. Welcome back to Millennium TV News. Mr. Putin spoke after meeting Barack Obama on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. But the meeting and the leaders' speeches at the UNGA also highlighted splits about how to end the Syrian war. Russia said it would be an enormous mistake not to work with Syria's President Bashar al-Assad to tackle IS. On Monday, the US and France again insisted that President Assad must go. But in response, Mr. Putin said they aren't citizens of Syria and so should not be involved in choosing the leadership of another country. Missiles reportedly hit 2 tents in a village near the Red Sea port of Mocha, where a man linked to the Houthi rebel movement was celebrating his marriage. But the Saudi-led coalition that has been bombing the rebels for 6 months denied responsibility for the attack. The UN condemned the disregard shown by all sides for human life in Yemen. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon stressed that there was no military solution to the conflict and its continuation would only bring more human suffering and destruction. Some 5,000 people, including 2,355 civilians, have been killed in airstrikes and fighting on the ground since 26 March when Houthi fighters and allied army units forced Yemen's internationally recognized president to flee the country. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said security forces had recaptured some government buildings and inflicted heavy casualties on the enemy. The US said it had carried out an airstrike on the city early on Tuesday. The Taliban had forced Afghan troops and officials to retreat to the airport and freed hundreds from jails on Monday. The attack on the northern city came as President Ashraf Ghani completed a year in office. In a televised address on Tuesday, he vowed to retake Kunduz and accused the Taliban of using civilians as shields. The government of Afghanistan is a responsible government and it cannot bomb its people and compatriots inside the city and will not do so. He said progress was being made with fresh troops arriving to assist the counter-offensive. Kunduz is the first provincial capital seized by the Taliban since they lost power in the US-led invasion 14 years ago, and the Taliban's advanced will pile pressure on Mr. Ghani's unity government. More than 50 countries pledged 40,000 troops for United Nations peacekeeping on Monday at a US-led summit called to shore up missions under strain from the rise in global crisis. China scaled up its contribution, taking the lead in setting up an 8,000-strong standby police force, while Colombia made a first-time offer of as many as 5,000 troops. The pledges represent a major boost to UN peacekeeping, which relies on voluntary contributions from UN member states to run its 16 missions worldwide. US President Barack Obama told leaders that peace operations were experiencing unprecedented strains and deployed in more difficult and deadlier conflicts. We know that peace operations are not the solution to every problem, Obama told the summit held on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, but they do remain one of the world's most important tools to address armed conflict, he said. The Islamic State group says it carried on the attack, shooting dead Cesar Tavella, 50, in the capital Dhaka's diplomatic quarter. Police Commissioner Asaduzzaman Mia said Tavella was jogging when 2 attackers fired at him from behind. The US and UK urged citizens to be cautious, saying they had information Western interests could be targeted. They have also restricted the movements of their diplomats. It is the first time IS has claimed an attack in Bangladesh, where it has not yet announced a branch. In its claim, IS warned that citizens of the Crusader coalition would not be safe in Muslim nations. Police in Dhaka have not commented on the IS claim. Now the businesses news. The U.S. Commerce Department said the economy expanded at an annualized pace of 3.9% rather than 3.7%. The growth in the economy overall was due to strong consumer spending, business investment, and residential construction. Its rate is much higher than the 0.6% rate recorded in the first quarter. The growth rate is expected to have slowed in the current quarter, but in a speech on Thursday, Federal Reserve head Janet Yellen said economic growth appeared solid and the U.S. remained on track for an interest rate rise this year. The central bank head said as long as inflation was stable and the U.S. economy was strong enough to boost jobs, the conditions would be right for a rise. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 index closed down 4.05% at 16,930.84. The index hit an 8-month low ahead of the closely watched Bank of Japan's Tankan quarterly business confidence survey due on Thursday. Japan's economy has struggled to pick up momentum after shrinking in the second quarter. Now the sports news. The Australian security delegation that visited Dhaka to check on the security situation in Bangladesh after intelligence reports predicted that there might be militant attacks on Australian interests has returned home without giving any decision on the test tour. Cricket Australia has not changed its decision to postpone the 2-match test series. Head of Security of Cricket Australia CA Sean Carroll, Australia team manager Gavin Dovey and security manager Frank Demasi visited Dhaka and had meetings with Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal and top Bangladeshi security officials on Monday. BCB President Nazmul Hassan and Chief Executive Nizamuddin Chaudhry also met the Australian delegation. The Cricket Australia website has reported that they have not changed their position over the matter of closing the tour. The security team will have further meetings with Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, DFTA, and then brief the cricket board, players and the management, cited the website. The Australian team had postponed its visit to Bangladesh on Saturday after being warned by the Australian government about possible militant attacks. Barcelona star Lionel Messi will be back in action before the 2 months originally stipulated, Argentina team doctor Donato Villani has said. Messi, 28, suffered an injury to the internal collateral ligament of his left knee, and Barcelona doctors estimate he will miss 7 to 8 weeks. This is not damage that requires surgery, Villani told Argentina Daily Ole. It'll heal with time off from play as a first step in the kinesiology. I have known Leo for years and I have no doubt that he is going to be ready to play again in the shortest time possible, maybe before the date that was estimated. The injury was to the ligament on the inner part of the knee, a ligament that is extra-articular that obviously suffers injury like any other ligament. But this one is outside the joint. He avoided a valgus force injury of the joint. It is not a tear that needs surgery. This ligament injury takes about 6 to 8 weeks to heal. After that time, the player can be ready to return with no further problems. The incident happened inside the opening stages of the 2-1 win over Las Palmas at the Camp Nou, when Messi cut inside from the right wing and his left-footed shot was blocked by visiting defender Pedro Bigas. Let's have a look at Millennium TV News Recap. Pope Francis holds large mass in Philadelphia to end U.S. visit. Prince Harry surprises Duke of York's military school students. David Cameron meets Iranian president over Syria conflict. 4 British jihadists face UN sanctions. Calais migrant crisis, man crushed in lorry. You are up to date with our top stories so far here on Millennium TV, and don't forget to log into www.millenniumtv.net. Thank you for staying with us. Allah Hafiz.